Hey, what is up, everybody? I am here to give you my Read Aloud series for The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Chapter 33. If you want to check out my Read Aloud series for chapters 1 through 32, click on the playlist down in the description box below, and I'm just going to get right into it. This chapter is called Protection Against Ghosts, and it starts on page 215 and it ends on page 226. So I'm just going to get... Yeah, that is the name of the chapter. Within a few minutes, the news had spread and a dozen skiff loads of men were on their way to McDowell's Cave, and the ferry boat, well filled with passengers, soon followed. Tom Sawyer was in the skiff that bore Judge Thatcher. When the cave door was unlocked, a sorrowful sight presented itself in the dim twilight of the place. Injun Joe lay stretched upon the ground, dead, with his face close to the crack of the floor, and as if his longing eyes had been fixed to the latest moment upon the light and the cheer of the free world outside. Tom was touched, for he knew by his own experience how this wretch had suffered. His pity was moved, but nevertheless he felt an abounding sense of relief and security now, which revealed to him in a degree which he had not fully appreciated before how vast a weight of dread had been living upon him since the day he lifted his voice against this bloody-minded outcast. Injun Joe's Bowie knife lay close by, its blade broken in two. The great foundation beam of the door had been chipped and hacked through with tedious labor, unless labor too. It was for the native rock formed a still outside, and upon that stubborn material the knife had wrought no effect. The only damage done was to the knife itself, but if there had been no stony obstruction there, the labor would have been useless. Still, for it the beam had been wholly cut away. Injun Joe could not have squeezed his body under the door, and he knew it. So he had only hacked that place in order to be doing something, in order to pass the weary time, in order to employ his tortured faculties. Ordinarily, one could find a dozen bits of candle struck around in the crevices of this vestibule left there by tourists, but there were none now. The prisoner had searched them out and eaten them. He had also contrived to catch a few bats, and these also he had eaten, leaving only their claws. The poor unfortunate had starved to death. In one place near at hand, a stalagmite had been slowly growing up from the ground for ages, building by the water drip from a stalactite I don't know how to say that word overhead. The captive had broken off the stalagmite, and upon the stump had placed a stone wherein he had swooped a shallow hollow to catch the previous drop that fell once in every 3 minutes with dreary regularly of a clock tick. A spoonful once in 4 and 20 hours. That drop was fallen when the pyramids were new, when Troy fell when the foundations of Rome were laid, where Christ was crucified, when the conqueror created the British Empire, when Columbus sailed, when the massacre at Lexington was news, in quotation marks, news is in quotation marks, it was fallen now, it will still be fallen when all these things shall have sunk down the afternoon of history and the twilight of tradition and been swallowed up in the thick night of oblivion. Has everything a purpose and a mission? Does this drop fall patiently during 5,000 years to be ready for this fitting humans insects need? And has it another important object to accomplish 10,000 years to come? No matter what, it is many and many a year, thousands to come. No, many a year since the hapless half-breed scooped on the stone to catch the priceless drops. But to this day, the tourist stares longest at that pathetic stone and that slow drop in water when he comes to see the wonders of McDowell's cave. Injun Joe's cup stands first in the list of the cavern's marvels. Even Aladdin's place cannot rival it. Injun Joe was buried near the mouth of the cave, and people flocked there in boats and wagons from the town and from all the farms and hamlets for 7 miles around. They brought their children and all sorts of provisions and confessed that they had almost as satisfactory a time at the funeral as they could have had at the hanging. This funeral stopped the further growth of one thing: the petition to the governor for Injun Joe's pardon. The petition had been largely signed. Many tearful and eloquent meetings had been held, and a committee of sappy women been appointed to go in deep mourning and wail around the governor and implore him to be a merciful ass and trample his duty underfoot. Injun Joe was believed to have killed 5 citizens of the village, but what of that? If he had been Satan himself, there would have been plenty of weaklings ready to scribble their names to a pardon petition and drip a tear on it from their permanently impaired and leaky waterworks. The morning after the funeral, Tom took Huck to a private place to have an important talk. Huck had learned all about Tom's adventure from the Welshman and the widow Douglas, by this time, but Tom said he reckoned there was one thing they had not told him. That thing was that he wanted to talk about now. Huck's face saddened. He said, "I know it is. You got into number 2 and never found anything but whiskey. Nobody told me it was you, but I just knowed it must have been you. Soon as I heard about that whiskey business, I knowed you hadn't got the money because you got you got at me some other way or other, and told me even if it was your mom to everybody else. Tom something's always told me we never get a hold of that swag. Why, Huck, I never told on the tavern keeper. You know his tavern was all right the Saturday. I went to the picnic. Don't you remember you was to watch there that night? Oh, yes. Why, it seems about a year ago. It was that very night that I followed Injun Joe to the widow's. You followed him? Yes, but you keep mum. I reckon Injun Joe left friends behind, and I don't want 'em soaring on me and doing me mean tricks. If it had been for me, he'd be down in Texas now, all right." Then Huck told his entire adventure in confidence to Tom, who had only heard the Welshman's part of it before. "Well," said Huck, presently coming back to the main question, Whoever nipped the whiskey in number 2 nipped the money too, I reckon. Anyways, it's a goner for us now, Tom." Huck, that money wasn't ever in number 2. What? Huck searched his comrade's face keenly. Tom, have you got on the track of that money again? Huck, it's in the cave. Huck's eyes blazed. Say it again, Tom. The money's in the cave. Tom, honest, Injun. Now, is it fun or earnest? Earnest, Huck. Just as earnest as ever I was alive. I was in my life. Will you go in there with me and help me get it out? I bet I will. I will if it's where we can blaze our way to it and not get lost. Huck, we can do that without the least bit of trouble in the world. Good as wheat. What makes you think the money's... Huck, you just wait till we get in there. If we don't find it, I'll agree to give you my drum and everything I've got in the world. I will buy gins. Alright, it's a whiz. What did you say? Right now. When do you say? Right now. If you say it, are you strong enough? Is it far in the cave? I bet I've been on my pins a little. 2 or 3 days now, and I can't walk more than a mile. Tom, least I don't think I could. It's about 5 miles into there, the way anybody but me would go. Huck, there's a mighty shortcut that don't anybody but me know about. Huck, I'll take you right to it in a skiff. I'll float the skiff down there and I'll put it back again all by myself. You'd never ever turn your hand over. Let's stop right off, Tom. I can't believe he's going to go back in this cave after everything that's happened. Alright, we want some bread and meat and our pipes and a little bag or two and 2 or 3 kite strings and some of these knee-flawed things they call Lucifer matches. I tell you, many's the time I wish I had some when I was in there before. A trifle after noon, the boys borrowed a small skiff from a citizen who was absent and got underway at once. When they were several miles below Cave Hollow, Tom said, "Now you see this bluff here looks all like all the way down from the cave. Hollow, no houses, no wood yards, blushes all alike. But do you see that white place up yonder where there's been a landslide? Well, that's one of my marks. I'll get ashore now." They landed. Now, Huck, where a standing, you could touch that hole. I got with a fishing pole. See if you can find it. Huck searched all the place about and found nothing. Tom proudly marched into a thick clump of scum bushes and said, "Here you are. Look at it, Huck. It's the snuggest hole in this country." And I think this is a picture of Tom going through the hole and with Huck. I don't know if you can see that or not. Here you are. Look at it, Huck. It's the snuggest hole in this country. You just keep mum about it. All right. I've been wanted to be a robber, but I knew I'd got to have a thing like this and where to run across it was the bother. We've got it now, and we'll keep it. Only we'll let Joe Harper and Ben Rogers in because, of course, there's got to be a gain, or else there wouldn't be any style about it. Tom Sawyer's gain. It sounds splendid, don't it, Huck? Well, it just does, Tom. And who we rob? Almost anybody. Waylay people. That's mostly the way. And kill them? No, not always. Hide them in the cave till they raise a ransom. What's a ransom? Money. You make them arise all they can. Often they're friends, and after you've kept them a year. If it ain't raised, then you kill them. That's the general way. Only you don't kill the woman. You shut up the woman, but you don't kill them. I think that's a great line, actually. They're always beautiful and rich and awfully scared. You take their watches and things, but you always take your hat off and talk polite. They ain't anybody as polite as robbers. You'll see that in any book. Well, the woman get to loving you, and after they've been in the cave a week or 2 weeks, they stop crying, and after that, you couldn't get them to leave. If you drove them out, they'd turn around and come back. It's so in all the books. Why, it's the real bully, Tom. I believe it's better to be a pirate. Yes, it's better in some ways because it's close to home and circuses and all that. I think that's how you say that. By this time, everything was ready and the boys entered the hole. Tom in the lead. They told their way to the farther end of the tunnel, then made their spliced kite strands fast and moved on. A few steps brought them to the spring, and Tom felt a shudder quiver all through them. He showed Huck the fragment of candlewick perched on a limb of clay against the wall, and described how he and Becky had watched the flames struggle and expire. The boys began to quiet down to whispers now, for the stillness and gloom of the place oppressed their spirits. They went on and presently entered and followed Tom's other corridor until they reached the jumping off place. The candles revealed the fact that it was not really a precipice, but only a steep clay hill 20 or 30 feet high. Tom whispered, "Now I'll give you something, Huck." He held his candle aloft and said, "Look as far around the corner as you can. Do you see that? There on the big rock over yonder, done with smoke, candle smoke. Tom, it's a cross. Now where's your number 2? Under the cross, hey, right yonder's where I saw Injun Joe poke up his candle, Huck." Huck stared at the mystic sign a while and then said with a shaky voice, "Tom, let's get out of here." "What, and leave the treasure?" "Yes, leave it. Injun Joe's ghost is round about there, certain." "No, it ain't, Huck. No, it ain't. I won't have it at the place where he died. Away out at the mouth of the cave, 5 miles from here." "No, Tom, it wouldn't. It would hang around the money. I know the ways of ghosts, and so do you." Tom began to fear that Huck was right. Misgivings gathered in his mind, but presently an idea occurred to him. "Look here, Huck, what fools we're making of ourselves. Injun Joe's ghost ain't going to come around where there's a cross." The point was well taken. It had its effect. "Tom, I didn't think of that, but that's so. It's luck for us that cross is. I reckon we'll climb down there and have a hunt for that box." Tom went first, cutting rude steps in the clay hill as he descended. Huck followed. 4 avenues opened out of the small cavern which the great rocks stood in. The boys examined 3 of them with no result. They found a small recess in the one nearest the base of the rock, with a pallet of blankets spread down in it. Also an old suspender, some bacon rind, and the well-gnawed bones of 2 or 3 fowls. But there was no money box. The lads searched and researched this place but in vain. Tom said, "He said under the cross. Well, this comes nearest to being under the cross. It can't be under the rock itself because that sets solid on the ground." They searched everywhere once more and then sat down discouraged. Huck could suggest nothing. By and by, Tom said, "Look here, Huck, there's footprints and some candle grease on the clay about one side of this rock, but no on the other sides. But not on the other sides. Now, what's that for? I bet you the money is under the rock. I'm going to dig in the clay." That ain't no bad notion, Tom," said Huck with animation. Tom's real bottle was out at once, and he had not dug 4 inches before he struck wood. "Hey, Huck, you hear that?" Huck began to dig and snatch now. Some boards were soon uncovered and removed. They could see a natural chasm which led under the rock. Tom got into this and held his candle as far under the rock as he could, but he could not see the end of the rift. He proposed to explore. He stooped and passed under the narrow way, descended gradually. He followed its winding course, first to the right, then to the left, Huck at his heels. Tom turned a short curve by and by and exclaimed, "My goodness, Hucky, look at here." It was the treasure box, sure enough, occupying a snug little cavern, along with an empty powder keg, a couple of guns in leather cases, 2 or 3 pairs of old mook skins, I don't know how to say that word, a leather belt, and some other rubbish well soaked with watership. "Got it at last," said Huck, plumbing among the tarnished coins with his hands. My, but we're rich, Tom." "Huck, I also reckon we'd get it. It's just too good to believe, but we have got it, sure. Say, let's not fool around here. Let's snake it out. Let me see if I can lift the box." It weighed about 50 pounds. Tom could lift it after an awkward fashion, but could not carry it conveniently. I thought so," said he. "They carried it like it was heavy that day at the haunted house. I noticed that. I reckon I was right to think of fetching the little bags along." The money was soon in the bags, and the boys took it up to the cross rock. "Now let's fetch the guns and things," said Huck. "No, Huck, leave them here. They're just the trick to have when we go to robbing. We'll keep them here all the time, and we'll hold our orgies." It kind of sounds weird to say that, but I don't think it's that type of orgies there too. It's an awful snug place for orgies. What's orgies? I don't know, but robbers always have orgies. And of course we've got to have them too. Come along, Huck. We've been in here a long time. It's getting late. I reckon I am hungry too. I'm hungry too. We'll eat and smoke when we get to the skiff." They presently emerged into the clump of sumach bushes, looked warily out, found the coast clear, and were soon lunching and smoking in the skiff. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, they pushed out and got underway. Tom skimmed up the shore through the long twilight, chatting cheerily with Huck, and landed shortly after dark. "Now, Huck," said Tom, "we'll hide the money in the loft of the widow's woodshed, and I'll come up in the morning, and we'll count it and divide it, and then we'll hunt up a place out in the woods for it where it will be safe. Just you lay quiet here and watch the stuff till I run and hook Benny Taylor's little wagon. I won't be gone a minute." He disappeared and presently returned with the wagon, but the 2 small sacks into it, threw some old rags on top of them, and started off, dragging his cargo behind him. When the boys reached the Welshman's house, they stopped to rest. Just as they were about to move on, the Welshman stepped out and said, "Hello, who's that?" "Huck and Tom Sawyer." "Good, come along with me, boys. You are keeping everybody waiting." "Here, hurry up. Trot ahead. I'll haul the wagon for you." "Why, it's not as light as it might be. Got any bricks? Got bricks in it or old metal?" "Old metal," said Tom. "I judge so. The boys in this town will take more trouble and fool away more time hunting up 6 bits worth of old iron to sell to the foundry that they would to make twice the money at regular work. But that's human nature. Hurry along, hurry along." The boys wanted to know what the hurry was about. "Never mind, you'll see when we get to the widow Douglas's," Huck said with some apprehension, for he was long used to being falsely accused. Mr. Jones, we haven't been doing nothing." The Welshman laughed. "Well, I don't know, Huck, my boy. I don't know what about that. Ain't you and the widow good friends?" "Yes. Well, she been good friends to me anyways." "All right then. What do you want to be afraid for?" The question was not entirely answered in Huck's slow mind, but he found himself pushed along with Tom into Mrs. Douglas' drawing room. Mr. Jones left the wagon near the door and followed. The place was grandly lighted, and everybody that was of any consequence in the village was there. The Thatchers were there, the Harpers, the Rogers, Aunt Polly, Sid, Mary, the minister, the editor, and a great many more, all dressed in their best. The widow received the boys as heartily as one could well receive two such looking beings. They were covered with clay and candle grease. Aunt Polly blushed crimson with humiliation and frowned at her and shook her head at Tom. Nobody suffered half so much as the 2 boys did. However, Mr. Jones said, "Tom wasn't at home yet, so I gave him up, but I stumbled on him and Huck right at my door, so I just brought them along in a hurry." "And you did just right," said the widow. "Come with me, boys." She took them to a bed chamber and said, Now wash and dress yourself. Here are the 2 suits of clothes, shirts, socks, everything complete. They're Huck's." No, thanks, Huck. Mr. Jones brought one and I the other. But they'll fit you both. Get into them. Well, wait, calm down when you are slicked up enough." Then she left. And then that's the end of the chapter. I'm not exactly sure what exactly that's supposed to be at the end there. When I guess I don't know if they're going to Injun Joe's funeral, but I thought this was actually another pretty big chapter. You know, you had the death of Injun Joe. You had Tom and Huckleberry Finn finally find the treasure. And then obviously you have this scene that just happened. I thought this was a really well done chapter, and I really enjoyed it. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. And make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time you upload a video, you guys will get the notification for it. And make sure you guys do the same for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. Make sure you guys subscribe and click on the bell so that way every time you upload a video on that channel, you guys will get the notification for it. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.